Next up, I'm going to take a look at my insect sprites, so my butterflies and my grasshoppers. Now, these are going to work the same way, okay? All their code is going to be in the same order. When I open up my butterfly sprite, though, I can see that there's lots of code here with lots of notes on it. So I can take a look at these notes, and I can also read through the algorithm or set of ordered instructions on my slides. So it says, the code you need for these sprites is already inside the sprites. However, it has not been organized into the correct sequence. Remember, that's the correct order. When the green flag is clicked, the bugs should continuously move down the screen. If they touch the frog, they should go to a random X position and a Y position of 180. The score variable should increase. If they touch the pond, they should go to a random X position and a Y position of 180. So let's take a look at the code that we have inside of our sprites. So up here it says when the green flag is clicked, and it tells me to drag the code in the sprite into the correct sequence. Think about what needs to go inside of the loops and the if statements. So I'm going to start with my forever loop, okay? And on my note here, it actually says this is our forever loop. All of the other code should go inside this because we need to constantly check whether or not the butterfly is checking the frog or the pond. So the entire time my game is running, I need to be checking that. So those checks need to go inside my forever loop. So inside my forever loop, I need to check with my if statements whether my sprite is touching the pond or the frog. So let's take a look here. I've got these conditions here. So this says, this is a condition. Inside an if statement, this will check whether or not the butterfly is touching the pond. So I can tell by the shape of this condition that it needs to go inside here. There we go. So I'm going to put it in there. I'm just going to get rid of that note. This is also a condition, and it checks whether or not the sprite is touching the frog. So I'm going to get rid of that note too, and I'm going to drag this guy up too. There we go. So now, if the sprite is touching the pond, all I want it to do is move back up to the top of the screen in a random position across here. So what I need to do for that is use one of these guys. You'll notice that this piece of code sends our butterfly to a random point on the x-axis, which is side to side, with a value of 180 on the y-axis, which is up and down. So 180 is around here. Okay? So I am going to take this piece of code and I'm going to put it inside of my if statement, because if the sprite is touching the pond, then I want it to go to that place. Now, if the sprite is touching the frog, I want it to go to that place as well and start over from the top. But I also want it to do something else. I want my score to increase. So I'm going to drag this up into that if statement as well. Now, I'm still left with this little piece of code here. It says change y by -3. The note on this says this changes the sprite's y value. The y-axis goes up and down the screen. That means that making the y value smaller will move the sprite down the screen. So I want to make sure that my sprite, that my sprite is moving down the screen the entire time for the entire game, all right? So I'm going to put it inside the loop, but I'm not going to put it inside either of my if statements because it needs to happen whether or not it's touching the pond or the frog. So now I'm going to click on my green flag and see what happens. So my butterfly moves down the screen. When it hits the pond, it jumps back up to the top. And you can see that it's now falling in a random place each time. Now let me catch it and see if my score works. It does. There we go. So now I need to put the code in this order for all 4 of my little sprites here. All right, off we go.